this is the beginning of my product journey, which was very much in line with the Duchamp thing. So, and again, in terms of timing, I was in my digital communications agency, was working a lot with, worked with Orange and these big telcos, and we were selling kind of smaller and smaller handsets that did more and more stuff, and everybody hated them. And if you remember, before the iPhone came along, how much we hated our little phones. We couldn't really use them. So I just did this. I bought an old handset off eBay, rewired it into a hands-free kit, and walked around the street with a big old retro handset. And to this timing point, I didn't really know what was going to happen, but every single person just reacted so strongly to it, because I'd never seen anything before like this. I thought it was an interesting idea myself, but having experienced that firsthand, I just knew I knew it had this incredible power. So we just went. It was simmering for like 2 or 3 years, and then suddenly New York Times did a double-page spread on it, and it went global. I was on national news, and right across the world with this funny little idea. So we just ended up going and making it, and then we made other products as well. And then we get ripped off left, right, and centre, and it didn't go any further. But on the journey, we had figured out how to make stuff, and figured out how to make things and mass manufacture them. And also, in my consultancy business, there was 2 or 3 years when the environmental kind of catastrophe was burning very, very bright for most people, and everybody was talking about it, and everybody was afraid of it. Now nobody cares again. Anyway, let's put that to the side. But it felt like it wasn't something that advertising communications could solve. It was a problem that was systemic in the whole kind of, in the world of products and stuff around us, and how things like, the things we tended to aspire towards, are by their nature more abusive from an energy consumption standpoint than other things, So, big stakes, Range Rovers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're all, they're all high energy, and when you were looking at what was happening in low energy, then, it's a sort of paler, less attractive, puritanical world of objects that lack inspiration. And so I felt like, well, as an artist, I've obviously sculpted around galleries and looked at these amazing neon constructions. So it felt like, well, back to this one again, why can't these be more inspirational? So we just thought, because we'd been through this phone experience, we just thought, let's make one, because it's. I usually get kicked in Plumen when I just go, it's just, it's just a glass tube. I mean, how hard can it be? It took us, how long did it take us, Sam? 3 years to make it, something like that. Pretty much. Yeah, it took us like 3 years to make this. We had, no lie, 20 rounds of back and forth with a.
Died about 10 times.
It was a nightmare. But anyway, we were right. It was just we underestimated the time that it took. But so we were really excited about this idea of saying, look, this is a problem. This is an issue. Again, right in our times, it's right on top of us, and we need to. What role does design have in trying to solve that problem? And you think about what so much of the design dollars that are spent in the world, what are they spent doing? It's designers trying to make things alluring and attractive, and trying to change behaviour in the consumer world in which we live. Then design is the driver of a lot of that. So why can't we use that same sort of seduction and allure to try to draw people into much more kind of efficient products? And lighting is still the second biggest energy draw in the household after heating. So it's like you could fix this problem. You'd be really moving the needle on energy consumption, which obviously you sort the supply side out with more sustainable energy creation, but you also try and sort the draw side, and that goes a long way to fix the problem. So this is another thing, and then this is. Will it play? This is the brand new one. I don't know if anybody's seen it. Oh, it's all over the documentation, so it's all over the catalogue, so you've probably seen it. But this is one we worked with with Claire, which we just launched in September last year. So just to give you a bit of context, the one was launched in 2010. So this is, 6 years later. So yeah, we're kind of laying the seduction on pretty thick with that video. And then you can just see all of them lined up.
Could you leap in, Claire, and explain what you're thinking? Because you also collaborated with other designers on it, didn't you?
Yeah, there's the jeweller as well. There was a jeweller that came into the mix as well, who worked on the faceting of the form. But initially, I mean, this, how was it, 3 years ago? More? 3 years ago?
It took 5 years to produce it. Yeah, no, to get it to.
I think I was involved. I remember doing it on one summer, and then we kind of. I think when the project started, we had a sort of clear idea of referencing these kind of organic forms, which is working together, and then as we sort of got to a point, and then we sort of had a rethink, and then went back a year later, where Plumin had developed more of the efficiencies and more direction in terms of the of how the light needed to be refracted to be most efficient, and then it was again about working on those forms. So I worked on with the glass envelope, but initially it was starting on that central form, and how those layers interacted, and how the light was also beamed up as well as beaming down, and how we could produce the most efficient glow from. And for me, it was about playing with. I mean, it's quite tiny. It's almost the parameters of. And using that sort of analogy of the ship in the bottle before, it was the kind of parameters in which that we were able to work with within that, and it was tight, but it was incredible, really.
I mean, I think you remember the early, the brief when we sort of started it was about, saying again back to the kind of the timing. So we're seeing a huge shift from incandescents to LEDs, because that's the technology shift that it gives you the efficiency. But most people have had bad experiences with low energy light, that just the quality of the light, but also the way it's directed, and the objects that it tends to be presented in, are all kind of lacking in romance. And all, when I was reading back and trying to pick up quotes from when incandescents were launched, and people were really mesmerized by these objects. I mean, it was, by the way, it was the light bulb that carried the electricity into the home. So when vacuum cleaners came out, they used to plug the vacuum cleaner into the light socket, because that was the source of electricity in the home. But people would wax lyrical about this thing, because first of all, unlike kerosene, it wouldn't, if they kicked it over by mistake, it wouldn't set their house on fire. It didn't stink and make the air horrible. But when they looked at it, they often described it as it's like somebody's taken a piece of the sun and encased it in this bubble, out of reach, so you can't even touch it. It has this sort of magical quality, and it's like, that's why everybody's, that's why everybody's filling the bars with all these Edison things, because that's real romance, and this is real kind of feeling of this swan song of the end of this moment, this period of romance, and we're all going to move into living in the Starship Enterprise with a sort of cool wash of kind of textureless light, and yet actually the quality is there. It just needs to be teased out. It just needs to be, and Sam exactly the same with the one as well. It was like, it was pretty much the same brief. It's like, how do we bring the romance back in? How do we bring the sensuality back into these objects?
I think, and also we talked a lot about how achieving that preciousness, and achieving this was going to be a sizable bulb. It was going to be an investment bulb, to be able to, and it's all kind of encapsulating it within that glass form and giving it that space. It made it feel like this precious jewel that was in the centre, and it was really important to try and go to those forms.